You ready for me to go? Okay. I now call the Carroll County Board of Commissioners Thursday, September 2nd work session to order. The first thing we're going to do is we're very excited as a Board of Commissioners and very excited for our county with thanks to Community Development and Janet Hyde. We are now a broadband ready community, and so we're going to take a moment and Corinne Thornton from DCA is going to present our plaque to us.
Well, I'm so glad to be here today to recognize Carroll County as our newest broadband ready community. Broadband Ready is part of the Georgia Broadband Deployment Initiative, which was signed into law back in 2018. And basically what it does, it recognizes communities that have taken steps to ensure that not only is broadband meaningful infrastructure for a community, but you've put measures in place that will allow broadband to be accessible and expand throughout the community. And this really is a lot of work on behalf of the commissioners and staff, and so I'm very pleased to present this certificate recognizing Carroll County as the newest broadband ready community.
Thank you. If I think I remember from your website, aren't we like in the top 10 out of 159, do you think? We're pretty high up there in being new on getting it.
There aren't a lot, because this does take a lot of work on the behalf of the community to get this designation. It's not just a rubber stamp. It really does show a commitment to putting planning measures in place and streamlining permitting processes and being willing to work with providers.
Great, thank you. So commissioners will move to the front here to get a picture. Christy, can I ask you, or is Don going to take the picture? Okay, good.
It's a big deal.
Usually right this moment we'll do the financial recap, but I'm going to actually call Judge Simpson and Judge Blackman to the front. Judge Simpson needs to be in Atlanta shortly, so we're going to skip over to 10.3 on the agenda, and they are here to present our Courthouse Renovations engagement letter.
So thank you for your favorable response to our proposal and the plan with the National Center of State Courts. And you know, when I looked at this, I started thinking through, and I did a logic model like I do a lot of times, and I did this with Commissioner Chance once before when I had some ideas. But this is the big thing in my mind that needs to be done, is planning and designing. And this matter of crime, the courts, I think education and the courts and crime are the top issues affecting the health of Carroll County, the property values, our quality of life. And I think I've already had some discussions with Sheriff Langley, and he said, yes, let's work more closely together. Let's have a lot more conversations about how we work together. So that's what we want to do concurrent with this physical plan. And the physical plan is important. A good design is important. And a failure to design is a design for failure. So again, thank you very much. If you have any questions of me for now, I'll answer them. And if not, I'll leave the questions to Judge Blackman.
Thank you, Judge, for being on board with this. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead and ask, are y'all okay with putting this on a consent agenda for Tuesday night?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you, judges. All right, we'll go back to our financial recap. We have our finance director, Alicia Searcy here.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Afternoon.
Good evening.
You have before you the July financials. This is the first month of our new fiscal year, and we started out the year in a good way. Our revenues are $3,294,678. That's 5.57% of our budget. Last year at this time, we were at 5.16% of our budget. So our revenues as a percentage of our budgets is up slightly over last year. We're at about 8.33% through the year, and our expenses are running at 8% of our budget. So the expenses are in line with where they need to be. Our cash at the end of this period, we had about 187 days of operating cash, and we do have about $3.4 million of that committed to projects as we move through the year. Those were commitments that we made at the end of the year that are going to carry over into this year. As far as my department's concerned, I've hired a new person in our accounts payable. Her name is Kelly Patterson, and she's doing a great job so far, so we're glad to have her on board. And if you've got any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Ms. Cersei, our fund balance continues to look healthy and puts us in a very stable position.
It sure does.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, at this time we'll go over our discussion items for the September 7th meeting. Skip to the zoning session, we'll do at the end. Theron is running a little late with traffic, so we will now skip down to 10.2, and I'm going to call on the County Attorney, Stacy Blackman, to review our American Rescue Plan Funds resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This is a proposed resolution to accept the funds available under the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, in the amount of $11,653,519.50. And as Exhibit A, we have the initial plan for the expenditures based on the guidance that's currently available from the federal government. And so it authorizes the chairman and staff to implement this plan and take action and do all the required reporting and guidelines. And we will continue to review the federal guidance as it becomes available. And the Exhibit A has the categories that follow that guidance: support public health response, replace public sector revenue loss, water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. And then the last item was the final amount for day-to-day COVID concerns, which would be expenditures under the 12.5 amount.
Any questions for Stacy or Alicia or I concerning the resolution or the proposed expenditures?
Not getting into too much detail, but there's also some stipulations that money has to be spent within a certain amount of time. So for those that may be looking at this larger amount of money, we don't have 15 years to hold on to it and decide how we'd like to utilize it.
That's correct. The funds have to be incurred, like obligated, by December of 2024 and then spent by December 2026.
Thank you.
My only question, we've gone over this pretty thoroughly. I hope everyone realizes that these issues, 98% of what goes on before we get here. So there's been plenty of time spent on this, but the to be determined for broadband is my only question. If we want to, at some near point in the future or now, designate any particular amount for that, I'd like to stick up for my District 5 and say, you know, we certainly need that there. There may be a need in the future. I guess I could call it an opportunity to help fund or provide for that. So as soon as possible, I'd like to be able to stick a set amount in that broadband area.
Commissioners, are you okay with me putting us on a consent agenda for Tuesday?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Great, thank you. All right, Brian Kent, we're going to go ahead and move to you, 10.4, 10.5, and 10.6. I'm calling on the county engineer, Brian Kent, to present our agricultural conservation easement applications.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, before you, you have two applications that have proceeded into appraisal stage of a agricultural easement program. These are two applicants that have been around for a little while, but they have proceeded into the application stage. We still have about 9 other some odd applicants that have not proceeded into that, but these we're moving forward into the application phase some years ago when funds were redirected for other infrastructure projects. So now before you is the opportunity to have these people who have updated their appraisals to move forward with those potential submittal to NRCS. Once with your approval, these will be submitted to NRCS state office, and then they will be ranked through the state with other applications for ag easements, and then the deadline for that submittal is in November. Once they come back, typically sometime around March, we'll know how many federal funds were received for the state of Georgia, and it will be divvied out upon that state ranking, and if we rank high enough and are competitive enough, we will receive funds to be able to pursue closing on these ag easements. Any questions?
I'd just like to say on the Stober's application, of course, they're in my district. They are active cattle farmers, and their application is for placing a contiguous amount of property into this program. They applied a while ago, I guess it was a couple of years ago or something, were not able for some reason to get the funding, and have now gone through the process again with the associated expenses, and have been rated pretty highly in this. So I would just like to say they're active farming. They were instrumental, along with Commissioner Chambers' family, in starting up this whole agricultural easement movement, and they, I think, should be given serious consideration. So.
Thank you. Okay, both of those will be on the vote for Tuesday night. 10.6 is the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, and I'm bringing this before y'all as we discussed at our work retreat in Callaway. I'm asking for a consideration to place the remaining and any new applications on hold to allow staff to update the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program application process. I would like to go ahead and put that on the consent agenda if you're okay with that.
I'm good.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. So 10.6 will be consent. Thank you, Brian. 10.7, I'm going to call on our Public Works Director, Charles Pote, to present the purchase of 2 mini excavators.
Thank you, Chairman, Board of Commissioners. The bids went out on 8/5 and to returned on 8/18 by 3 p.m. To buy 2 mini excavators, 18,000-pound tractors with rubber tracks. We had 5 bidders to 5 companies to return the bids. All 5 companies did meet the specs on the mini excavator. Ag America bidded on the Courthouse, which was $81,585. Central Atlanta Tractor bidded on the Santa, which was $87,959. Atlanta Kubota bidded on the Kubota at $92,634. Cowan Equipment bidded on the Takahauchi at $100,119.49. And Yancey Brothers bidded on the Cat at $120,520. So our recommendations would be to go with Ag America for the $81,585 for 2 of them pieces of equipment.
Mr. Pope, I spent some time with you yesterday, and we reviewed a lot of this documentation, looking at the span and the difference, and it's like anything with different pieces of equipment, prices can differentiate substantially. But I looked over all the sheets that you and your committee worked through, and looked like y'all had done a very detailed job, and I didn't see anything that struck out to me as far as the price differentiation. Obviously, you're asking to go with the lowest bidder. It's also my understanding that you presented each one of these with the opportunity to give us their very best on warranty.
Yes, sir.
And can you go into a little detail about what Agri-America is offering?
Yes, the lowest bidder is actually one we went to, because that's the one that we wanted to present with y'all. Mr. Sam is here from Agri-America. If we have any questions, he could probably help us out. This is a guarantee that if you purchase the Cato tractor from Agri-America, and if it goes down for any mechanical reasons, that within 8 hours, if it takes more than 8 hours to fix this piece of equipment, that he would give us one comparable to put back on the road the same day, you might say. And I have that in an email, so.
That's very valuable, not only, monetary cost, but time is probably our most precious resource. Yes. So that's a very good warranty, not only the fact that it was the lowest bidder, but I appreciate that robust warranty offer there. I think that's going to really help your department should you have any problems.
Yes, sir.
I think we do need to consider heavily the opportunity for a replacement piece of equipment that will severely limit and reduce our downtime. And I'm glad that they operate a rental business as well, because that gives them extra equipment to loan out in case we need to have one. I think that's a big factor, along with the warranty.
Yes, so that means a lot to the department, that you don't have to wait on the tractor for a month to get fixed. You got a tractor, you can keep working.
Commissioners, are you good with putting this on consent agenda for Tuesday night?
I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Charles, I'm going to go ahead and have you present 10.8, the 2 tractors with mowers.
This particular tractors went out for bid on the same date, 8/5, to return by us on 8/18 by 3 p.m. We had three bidders to respond, and I'll go through them. Of course, Atlas Equipment, which I guess it partners with Deer Farm now, which sells the Massey Ferguson. The 4710, they came in at $65,909. Construction Sales and Service, which is out of Crestview, Florida, they come in with a LS tractor. Then, of course, they did not meet none of the specs, so we just bypassed that one. The third bid was Agri-America. They came in, they bid it on the New Holland Power Star 100 at $81,585. And our recommendation on that one to go with Agri-America for the New Holland Power Star 100 for the same reason. Mr. Sam gave us another letter that guaranteed if any one of these tractors went down, that they would give us a piece of rental equipment within 8 hours. We'll be back working. And also he added a warranty on the tractor, which is additional 2 years, extended bumper-to-bumper warranty, which is a value of $6,400 per tractor. So we have that in an email and in writing. Deer Farm, Roger gave us a warranty that, or gave us in writing, that he would give us another tractor to run if that one went down in 5 working days. Then the extended warranty was $2,550 each, with a $500 deductible on that particular tractor, the 4710.
So for apples to apples, we need to add $5,500 to the Georgia Deer Farm bid, basically.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Mr. Pope, I'm sorry, Commissioner. In reviewing some of the detailed documentation yesterday, it's my understanding, I guess trying to look at these individually, the LS product, we do not have a local dealer, so should there be, and I know you're not recommending that, but just trying to break this down, should we go with that company, you would be forced to try to find someone that could work on that, or a dealer that's nowhere near, is that correct?
That is correct. And the company that bid it on this, like I say, they're out of Crestview, Florida.
Okay, and it's also my understanding, looking through the details, that particular tractor did not have power steering?
It did not.
Okay. And also, on one of the models, I believe there was even though it met spec with a horsepower, it was actually a 3-cylinder instead of a 4-cylinder, is that correct?
The 4710 did not meet the specs on the engine because we specifically asked for a 4-cylinder engine. And it does meet the horsepower because it's got a 3-cylinder turbo, but it don't have the 4-cylinder engine that we had expect.
Looking at these bids, we obviously want to be very frugal in looking after the taxpayer dollars, and you look at the differentiation in the numbers. But when you break down the details, that's very important as well. The times we're living in as well with shortage in labor, you can't go to a restaurant or a manufacturing company and they don't have a help wanted sign on the front door. We don't know how long that's going to persist. So to me, the warranty carries a very valuable weight in this, and not only the warranty of backing the product, but the ability that you can get a piece of equipment essentially on the road the very next day. So when you take all those culminations in the factory, you look at the other pieces of equipment, some of them there's nowhere to get them serviced here. The one particular tractor, it may be a very good piece of equipment. I'm not knocking it, but trying to make a decision, it being a 3 and not meeting your spec of a 4-cylinder, I would be in agreement on all those factors of why your recommendation is to go with that particular tractor from Agro-America.
And we did add several more factors in there. The problems we're having now, the 4710s that we're currently running, we got 4 of them that we bought in 2017. All 4 of them's got less than 500 hours on it. All 4 of them, one of them had the transmission and rear end gets hot when you transport it, and it's melting the plastic fuel tank. We've replaced one, was $800, so now we're just taking them off and trying to plastic weld them back, to keep them going. And I asked Roger to come by and look at it, and he did, but Massey Ferguson did not get back with him, I suppose, so he didn't get back with us. So there's several factors in here that reason we're asking to try another brand than New Holland.
Because basically it's a design flaw, and if we purchase others, it will have the same design.
If they hadn't changed the design, it'd be the same 4710, and Mr. George might know that, I'm not sure.
Charles, did I understand you to say it was melting the gas tank? The fuel tank? The
yes,
fuel
sir.
tank?
Yes, sir. Sure is.
That is hot.
That's a public hazard, isn't it? I mean, that could be a bad deal.
We asked for help from them, and we did not receive it, so.
We need to put them on the market.
Commissioners, are you good with the recommendation of the Agro-America tractors with mowers for a consent agenda?
I'm good.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Charles.
Thank you.
Next, we have items 11.1 and 11.2, which deal with the confirmation of the county clerk as required by the Section 15 of the county's enabling legislation. A copy of this section is in your packets, and it states, subject to the confirmation by the commission, the chairman's authorized to appoint a clerk of Carroll County. Item 11.1 is for the confirmation of my appointment of Donna Lackey as county clerk. 11.2 is a confirmation of Diane Roberts as deputy clerk. They both have completed the state mandated training. Christy Adams will remain her role as the chief deputy clerk, so no action is required to confirm her appointment. These appointments will ensure that we always have backup in the chairman's office to meet your needs and make sure that our paperwork is signed in a timely manner. Are you okay with putting this on a consent agenda for Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, Theron is still not here, so I'm going to flip over to the next thing. 11.3 is a consideration of a resolution and ordinance regarding amendments regarding subdivisions. And I'm going to call on our county attorney, Avery Jackson, to present.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, we have for your consideration some proposed changes to the county's subdivision ordinance and regulations. First, we have a proposed change to the exemptions for splitting lots. It's an exemption. We currently have exemptions for from our subdivision ordinance if you're splitting 4 lots or less, and this would be a change to that exemption. Before going into the change, I'll just say that this does not affect and has nothing to do with 1-acre subdivisions in the residential zoning district. Those will remain the same if you're operating under our subdivision ordinance and regulations. You can still proceed under those. This proposed change will also not affect the 4-acre subdivisions in the agricultural zoning district. Those 4-acre subdivisions, if you're applying for those under our subdivision ordinance, will move forward as they always have. This only affects the exemptions to the subdivision ordinance. So it only affects if you're splitting 4 lots or less and claiming an exemption from the subdivision ordinance because it is 4 lots or less, which is a current exemption from our subdivision regulations. And the proposed change would just be that it would provide that you could only split 4 lots or less in a 2-year period if you're claiming that exemption from the subdivision ordinance and regulations. So currently, if you split 4 lots or less, you can claim an exemption from the subdivision regulations. This would say that if you can only do 4 lots from that parent tract in a 2-year period to be exempt. Now that doesn't, you can still go forward with splitting additional lots. You'd just be subject to the subdivision ordinance and regulations. The city of Villarica and Douglas County have similar provisions as to the proposed change that's before you on that. The second proposed change under the subdivision ordinance that we're presenting for your consideration is a requirement that once you receive your preliminary plat approval, that you would have 1 year to apply for your land disturbance permit. And if you don't apply for that permit within the 1-year period, then you'd have to go back and resubmit your preliminary plat and get approval for that. So it just has that 1-year requirement that once you receive that preliminary plat approval, you must move forward and obtain your land disturbance permit at that time within that 1-year period. And if you don't, you can still reapply for the same development just under the ordinance and regulations at that time when you apply. And the city of Villarica, Douglas County, Troup County, and the city of Carrollton have similar requirements for permits where they tie a time requirement to those. And we have Ben Skipper and Brian Kent with Community Development here if you have any questions or concerns about the process.
I'd like to give a little explanation of how this came about, and also to say I have no agenda. The only agenda that has been put upon me is the agenda of my constituents, or at least 90+% of them. So this did not come about because of any thing that Ernie Reynolds wants to do, or any power grab that I want to force anything on constituents or realty companies or anything. It's merely hearing from my constituents and them wanting to have some power against what they see is going on and what is proposed. And then me taking upon myself the role to which I was elected, which is to represent those constituents, period, end of sentence.
I'd like to say that everyone doesn't want to be a farmer. Not everybody that that a farmer who has land and passes it down to his children, about 35% of the time the children sell the land because they don't want to be farmers. Everybody don't want to be a farmer. That's why we have land conservation programs, and we buy land and we hold it because it can't be developed. To force this on people that make a living doing this, not right. That's fine.
So I'm here to represent my constituents, and because I'm here to represent my constituents, if we decide, or my constituents decide, but if we as a collective group for Carroll County decide that, hey, we want, as Tommy said, to have free will of developers with existing requirements, then so be it. What I'm hearing from my constituents is please help and intervene in this situation because agricultural land is being bought up, subdivided, and we are desecrating, to use one term. I could use others, I guess, whatever you want to come up with, but desecrating agricultural property. And yes, as has been pointed out to me, Hog Liver Road, great 5, 6, 4 acre tracts up there. I mean, nice looking houses, $700,000, $800,000 houses, whatever. Fine. I mean, if we want that throughout District 5, and constituents hear me out here, let me know if you don't care. If you want that, then we will do away with this, and I'll go away and we'll vote the way you want us to vote. Again, I have no agenda. However, what was brought to my attention is one development that I hear is proposed, and it takes a 500 and some acre piece of agricultural property in my district, and people are calling me left and right about that situation, saying, please stand up for us. And so my role is simply to act in their best interest against the power of money or the power of development, to say, if we don't want to become Douglas County, or if we don't want to have these type of developments, then let me know. Because what can go in any subdivided property like this is maybe not a $700,000, $800,000 home or whatever. Not that I'm favoring that, but I'm saying it takes $300,000, $350,000 of value for a residence to pull its weight as far as the burden on the county for fire support and ambulance support and sheriff support and school support and road support and so on. So if instead of large homes that pay their way, we put in $200,000 homes or double wides or whatever, then we are allowing, and if it's the will of the people, I align with that. So far I've heard it's not the will of the people, so I'm aligning with that. But if we put in double wides or 150,000, 200,000 or whatever, less than 350,000 that pulls their weight, then y'all other taxpayers out there are going to be paying for and supplanting county funds to pay for increased traffic on your roads and road repairs, increased schools and additional school facilities, increased sheriff patrols, increased ambulance, and so on. And eventually the taxes will be raised because you will have to pay for this. If that's what we want, hey, I'm fine. We'll align with that. I have no problem. But if that's not what you want, then I go back to the simple thing of, we have an ordinance now that says agricultural land can only be split 4 times. Simply put, we either need to put a time limit on that or do away with it altogether. Because it's a farce. Right now, we have it on the books, it can only be split 4 times. So when I heard about this desecrating 500 and some acres out there by, I mean, if y'all just want to look at this, I've made several copies, but it's the proposed is just split up all kinds of which way, just ruining good farmland. But anyway, and it doesn't matter who's putting it in. It could be Jim or George or Becky or anybody. So I'm not against any person. It's, again, just standing up for my constituents. But if we have it on the books that agricultural property can only be split 4 times, then I said, how can this occur? How can we have 40 parcels split and something like this go in? Answer, well, it can be split 4 times on Monday, and then 4 times on Tuesday, and then 4 more times on Wednesday, and 4 more times on Thursday, and so on, so that you can get it split 47 times or however many times you want to over a period of a few days. I mean, if that's occurring and that's not what we want, then let's change it to say you can only split it 4 times every X amount of time. If we don't want that to take place, the answer is to put some time limit on, as other counties have done. If we don't care and we want that to occur and we're okay with this kind of thing occurring throughout our county, then let's do away with the agriculture can only be split 4 times thing, because it makes no sense. It's a farce. I've also heard that, well, if I want to give 2 acres or 4 acres or whatever, if I have 6 grandchildren, I want to put it, give it to my 6 grand, then you're causing me to wait 2 years to give it to all the kids. No. I mean, there are processes in place now, and Avery can attest that, and Ben can too, that you can apply for an interfamily variance. That's typically awarded. There's no problem that way. Another thing that this allows is that a developer can go in, split 100 acres or however many acres of farmland, and by doing it this way, he or she skirts the requirements that we have on the books and the costs associated with those requirements for subdivisions. So again, the developer gets all the cash and the community suffers, and he reaps the benefits of not having to comply with any regulations for the good of the community, and he gets to reap those profits. So there's no requirements put on he or she as a developer doing it this way. If we put some restrictions on it, possibly if they wanted to develop it faster, they could apply for a subdivision requirement and therefore pay for the burden of some of those costs. So I'm not for government regulations. I'll just be right out with you. I don't wear a seatbelt. I'm not for government regulations. In fact, if you will go back and look at Curtis North and the rest of you, if you will go back and look at prior meetings where we have sat here and where we have sat here and ordinances have been brought up as far as what persons can do to run home businesses, what businesses they can and cannot run out of their homes. I adamantly opposed it. I don't even like wearing a seatbelt. I especially don't like to be told to wear a seatbelt. But if you take that to extreme and you say, this is America, we don't want any regulations, get out of our way, we ought to be able to do to our land what we want. Well, there's another proposal close by in Steve's district where they want to put in either a landfill or a recycling processing thing. What that does is increase all the traffic on the roads and all the associated wear and tear on the roads, the associated detriment to the And if we want that, fine. But if you want to take that to an extreme, and we don't want any government regulations, then I bought my own car, and you did too, Curtis, and you paid for it, and you pay for county roads, and you pay your taxes, so you ought to be able to drive 140 miles an hour down Lowell Road if you so want to. But we have speed limits, and we have sheriffs, and we have highway patrol, and we have city police, and we have government to monitor for the good of the people who are powerless against the power of large money brokers and developers or those who would take advantage of them. That's the only role of government, is to ensure the safety and well-being of the residents who otherwise would have no protection. Just take Flint, Michigan, for example, and all of their chemical water problems. If it wasn't for government wanting to ensure, did business come forth and correct those problems? No, they didn't. So you can laugh all you want to, but my point will always be, and I know my heart better than you do, believe it or not, and I am not for government regulations. I will never be for government regulations. The only time that I want more government regulations is when the people call me and text me and email me and beg for protection against something they don't want. And then, as their representative, I have to stand up and I have to be their representative and do what 90% of them call me to do. If they don't want that, then fine, and I won't do that. This is not my agenda, Curtis. This is the agenda of my constituents. And I don't know if we want this in Carroll County or not. 90% of my constituents say, no, please don't let it happen. Some say, government, get out of the way and let it happen. I'm fine either way, whatever my constituents want. And for each of us, I'm sure we feel the same way, whatever our constituents want. So, constituents, let me know. But right now, they have let me know. That's why I went. And we have this proposal in front of us. It's only to satisfy the wants and desires of my constituency. It is not for more government regulations. And I don't appreciate the attitude because I know what I feel. Well, I don't either, Curtis, because I am here to represent the people, period. That's all.
Well, I consider Commissioner Reynolds a friend. I totally disagree.
And that's fine.
I feel like, you have people that in the past have bought big plots of land, put their whole retirement in it, to someday to be able to sell that to a developer. What we're about to do is limit them to lose their retirement. I mean, this is not right. It's just not right.
I'd like
Control growth, that we know what we want, I agree with. But to put limitations on it, it's just not. Right.
Well, there's hundreds of people down south of Roopville that would clap louder, so, I mean, that's who I represent.
There's probably 500 called
Guys,
me and said
excuse
they
me.
don't want it.
Okay.
If you'll let the
That's
chair
fine.
recommend you, please, you'll let me recognize you. Thank you, Tommy.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ernie. Clint, I believe you want to be recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, I want to preface it by saying I'm a huge agricultural supporter. Part of my living is with that. I was raised on a farm, have a farm with my father and help him as well. But looking at this holistically, first of all, I respect Commissioner Reynolds and what he's trying to do, especially from an administrative point. If we have people trying to circumvent that would come in and split things up and maybe try to make a subdivision, but they've circumvented the rules, so to speak, that they should have actually followed a subdivision rules and regulations, so to speak. With that stated, part of the problem, and I've seen the argument here, but part of the problem is it's also not government's responsibility to regulate everything, even though we may like it. And so if children or grandchildren or the original owner of the property decides they would like to sell it, while I would like to see it remain agricultural, and I know at some point in time when land's gone, it's gone, how much of government control should we have the ability to tell them that they can, or that they can only do certain things that regulate that price point? I like the idea of trying to definitely do what we can to preserve the agricultural scene. To give you an example of some of the phone calls that I've had, and this is not verbatim, but putting together some things in my head based off notes I took. Let's say that we had a real estate agent or developer that came in and bought 100 acres. And right off the bat, they knew that they could make 4 of those lots 4-acre minimums that would still meet the agricultural requirements. Maybe 6, so they've already met the 4 threshold, the 4 split threshold. Let's say 6 months later or 4 months later, a doctor finds out about property that maybe they've advertised things and they want to come in and the doctor wants to buy 20 acres of that. Based off, if this is implemented, they couldn't split that. We'd have to call back the doctor and say, well, you're going to have to wait a year and a half. But yet the doctor coming in and buying 20 acres would be good too, right? Because it wouldn't be 21-acre houses. It would all just be one piece of tract of land. So when I look at it from that perspective, there are ways, and we've had a lot that have come before us that have tried to do their very best to stay away from the 1-acre minimum lots, and they've tried to go with the 4 acres ag, or some of them have tried to say, hey, we're willing to do even more, we're willing to do this or that, because I think a lot of people do recognize and appreciate that this board is united behind trying to preserve agriculture in and of itself. So I wouldn't want to discourage those people either. What I would like to see is the ability to communicate with and I understand we can't sit down and talk with 200 or 300 people, but if we could sit down and talk with some developers to get some of their feedback, if we could sit and talk with some of the representatives from the real estate market, maybe at the end of the conversation there's nothing that's agreed upon, but there might be an opportunity that there could be a happy medium to still cover the main basis of what you're trying to accomplish, Commissioner Reynolds, and it might be an opportunity that they would feel maybe they wouldn't be hamstringed either. So I want to do what's right, and I don't deviate from your goal of what you're trying to accomplish, but in the same note, sometimes in government we can pass things and inadvertently cause a heartache or a hardship on others that we didn't originally intend to be there. So it doesn't mean that you're against agricultural to sit and be willing to sit and talk with some individuals, in my opinion. So that's what I would like to see to do collectively as a board. I think we've worked very well together with our real estate and development community. We've got to work with everyone. We have to work with our constituents and their individual rights, but we have to work with individuals when they sell their property. It most likely is going to go through a real estate agent or a developer. So I would like to see us not wait 90 days, not wait 120 days. We need to do this fairly quickly, but give an opportunity to have some professionals from these different industries sit down with commissioners, sit down with professional staff, and just see where the conversation could go to see, is there a way that we could accomplish or reach some of the goals maybe on both sides of the aisle. So that is, in a nutshell, what I would like to see.
I have some questions.
Please.
Counselor, you might as well have a seat. I'm going to be a while. All right. Under the present rules that we have, and Ben, you know where I'm going with this. That tract of land that was down there below me. Okay, we got together and we required this developer put in a road, bring us a plan so that we could see what was going to happen there. So that it wasn't just chopped up willy-nilly here and there. Is that correct? Okay,
Could I
so
ask you to come over here and talk, because we just turned the air conditioning on because it's probably 100 degrees outside. And we are in an older building, so if I could ask you to come to the microphone, please.
all right, but I know it's a rule. It's a rule in the
Well, right. Let me just kind of clarify it for those that may not be able to hear us. Essentially, what we're talking about is a 100-acre tract, plus or minus, that a company has purchased, and they want to build a neighborhood, and they want to do about 20 lots. So they are following the subdivision regulations where they will build an internal street and then that will get final platted. They'll post a bond for the street for Public Works to make sure the street doesn't come apart, and then once the final inspections have been made, he gets his bond back for the street.
But he's following the rules.
Right, but he's
Okay.
also more than 4. So.
Okay, but when he's
And
going to
that's one of those, and that's the confusion between the public, Brian Kent's,
Yep,
you
that's
know,
why
with
I'm
the county
asking
engineers. Right, but yes, he's more than 4, therefore, he doesn't qualify for the final plat exemption. He goes through the subdivision regulations.
Okay. And I really don't understand what the beef is here. If somebody wants to do a development, why don't they just go right to the subdivision rules?
Well,
Answer me that.
The answer to that would be the beef is, if you're a developer, our rules are like much of the other zoning ordinance, they're 20 years old. So the rules never contemplated a 4-acre lot subdivision. It's when the county was doing half-acre lot and 1-acre lot subdivisions, and curb and gutter was required, along with detention facilities to handle your stormwater. So the reason that you have people calling you from the real estate development community is that there's a gap between these two requirements. So from the private sector, which is what my department deals with, the norm was pre-recession was half-acre lots and 1-acre lots. Since that time, the board previous to this board no longer wanted half-acre, 1-acre lots. They wanted 4-acre lots. But the rules never changed to accommodate a 4-acre lot. So if you're a developer and you're in Carroll County, so when Carroll County builds a road, we don't curb and gutter our county roads. But if you, like the neighborhood that you're talking about there behind your house, he's doing a 4-acre lot, but the rules require him to do curb and gutter, storm drains. And that, in my opinion, is too excessive, because ultimately what you're gonna have is you're gonna have curb and gutter come out to Clem Laurel Road, and then it's just gonna dead end.
Okay.
So you're gonna have a road that's just blacktop and then a ditch section. So from a financial standpoint, that's the gap. And that's the part that's very hard for the development community to explain, because in their mind, they know this, but sometimes it's hard to put it into words, because that gap between, so that's what you're seeing now. So if the development community hears from the board, we don't want you to apply for rezonings for a half-acre, 1-acre lot. We want you to stick to the minimum 4-acre lot, because by and large, since I've been back, since 2013, the community says 4-acre lots is almost ingrained in the public's mind. 4 acres is the minimum. It's the minimum that they like and they live with. But you also can see there's that gap between those two. So when Charles takes a dirt road and paves it, he don't put curb and gutter on it. But if you can't, so what I'm trying to say is that's why you're seeing final plat exemptions, is because the exemption doesn't require you to curb and gutter the side of the road. So from a mechanical standpoint, that's why you're seeing that. You're seeing them come apply for 4 because they're not doing curb and gutter, where if you apply for more than 4, you now trip the rules, you now have to do curb and gutter. Well, and I think Brian and I have had a conversation about this. I don't think he nor myself supports curb and gutter on a 4-acre lot minimum.
I agree.
And agreeing, and when we say that, that's just the minimum. It's 4, but it can be bigger. Because what we will then see in our office is, well, the county don't put curb and gutter on your roads. Why do you want me to do it? That's the very first thing the developer hits me with. So the so that's where you're balancing. Or the difficulty that my office is trying to balance is, we have this old set of documents that require curb and gutter, and that is good. But when the document was written, the standard was half-acre, 1-acre lot. This board has directed the community agents, buyers, sellers, to go to a minimum 4-acre lot. And that's the one that I was discussing with Ernie about. We have a gentleman that's, Brian, it's currently going through the final plat phase. What's the name of that one on Hog Liver Road? Cornwood? Northwood? Okay, Northwood, houses starting at $670,000. That is a 4-acre lot subdivision. Did he do curb and gutter? He did curb and gutter. So that's an example of where I'm talking about. We're going to have curb and gutter on a 4-acre lot come out to Hog Liver Road that has a minimum lot size of 4-acre that's not curb and gutter. So you see where, and another example is if you travel to a Paulding or a Douglas or a Cobb County, 15 years ago, walking and sidewalks became the popular craze to stipulate in neighborhoods. How many sidewalks have you seen dead end to nowhere in a metro county?
They're all over the place.
When you're driving through the county, you see a sidewalk comes out of the neighborhood, just dead ends.
Right.
And it goes nowhere. So, and you see them with GDOT projects. GDOT, now the in vogue thing is to put crosswalks and sidewalks at all the intersections, and then they go nowhere. Think about the triangle. The 4-lane and 166. We have sidewalk and crosswalks that GDOT puts in, and then as soon as you get to the end of their right-of-way, it dead ends into a ditch. It doesn't go anywhere. So what I'm trying to explain is there's that gap between 4 and 1 that's on the table, and that's the difficulty. That's why we're here now, and that's why that's not, well, they haven't got a chance to speak yet, but that's one of their biggest things that for them, that's the greatest question that you have to have. Another thing is if you go to subdivision regulations, you then must put in an internal street. So from that standpoint, well, let's say you got 5 lots. Well, now you have to build a street where before you had enough road frontage, you could have just, and it looked like every other house on the county road. So that's another huge trigger. Brian, am I right in that one when I said that? It requires you to build an internal street. So an example would be there's a development going into Fairfield off Moon Road. And that was the reason they didn't do it, because the county water was present and the road met the standard. And Charles is here. Correct me if I'm wrong. Moon Road? Charles says yes. I know you can't hear him. So Moon Road met the standard. Therefore, the county didn't ask him to do anything to the road. But because he had the plat exemption, he could cut the lot out onto Moon Road. Another example is Banning Road. If you've been down Banning recently, yeah. I think the minimum lot width there is probably in the 300 range. Brian, am I correct? They're around. So each lot's 300 feet wide, where before, that would have been 3 lots in a neighborhood, that you're trying to control all that water. So you would have had actually 6 lots, because they'd be on each side of the road. So you got 6 houses, 6 driveways in the span of 1 house, 1 driveway right now. So that's why that's our gap, and that's the difficulty in trying to regulate this, is that if you go from a minimum of 4 with a plat exemption, you don't have to do an internal street and you don't have to do curb and gutter, to number 5 triggers, you have to do an internal street and curb and gutter. So that's the big, so that's why we're here tonight. That's the big hiccup with number 5, going from 4 to 5.
Well, it sounds like we need to do something in that gap.
That's what I was just going
Yeah,
to say.
that sounds to me like where the problem is.
I'd like to see you and Brian and maybe B or whoever
we can't hear you, Tommy.
Rewrite this ordinance.
Just for them out there, we can't hear you.
And rewrite the ordinance on this curb and gutter in 4-acre tracts. I want to see that, I want to see something written about that they don't
Okay.
have to do that.
All right,
I'd
but
like to see an ordinance where we can change that.
But I do want to tell you this. I do want to tell you this sort of thing right here gets my dander up. Okay?
Okay.
All right. And the calls that I've got, they didn't necessarily, some of them didn't really understand this. They didn't really understand the way it read. Okay, but every call, with the exception of one, and one letter, was to do something to prevent runaway development.
I think 4 or 5 acre tracts is not runaway development.
Well, but
I mean,
what about
my
this?
opinion.
What about this, Tommy? I mean,
That's not runaway development. That's big acre tracts. The land sat there for sale for how long? Why didn't somebody step up and buy it? I
well,
don't understand that. Everybody, you can stick a shovel in any place in Carroll County and somebody's gonna come up and fuss. I don't care where it's at.
I
My
know it.
district, your district, Montrail, George, somebody's gonna have something to sell.
Well-
Always.
okay, is this,
Gets me up, man.
Did you have another question, Commissioner Fuller?
well, are you familiar with the term, legal redlining? Do you know what that means?
Do you say
Anybody?
legal redlining?
Yeah, one of you lawyers back there, what is legal redlining?
Okay, you can't address the, please, you cannot address the
Okay,
audience.
well, when you get up here, you can tell me what it is. Avery, do you know what it is?
I think I'll hand that over to our county attorney.
Yeah.
Can we pause just a second? How do we get this turned on?
They're saying they can't hear over.
I'm sorry, I tried to get the air on because I know it's hot in here, but I didn't realize the air was going to come on in such a huge force. So anyway, we might have to sweat just a little bit. Okay, so you asked a question about redlining.
Yeah, let's call it legal redlining. I'm
Okay,
not
so we're
familiar
gonna
with
let
that term.
County attorney answer it.
Yes, I'm familiar with it in the context of your redlining documents and comparing them to one another, but in the context of property that I think you're using, I'm not familiar with that term at
Okay.
all.
Well, would this lower, if we did this, in y'all's opinion, would it lower property values?
I'd have to leave that to.
If we
What
put this,
lower?
if we put this in, a lot created under this section, including the original, this new ordinance, would it lower property values?
Well, I think that's the greatest crystal ball in the world as to value,
Okay.
because I'm a silver-haired guy, and I've lived through the good times prior to 2008. I lived through the Great Recession, where counties all over Georgia assessed current residents at a value less than the replacement cost to build it. So, I mean, to me, when we start going into values, they're like opinions.
Okay.
Everybody has one. Everybody has a different form of what that value is to them. And I think the free market has always established, and this is one great debate that me and Hubert Sparks always gets to have over in the assessor's office, is that value is established by what A seller is willing to sell, and B, the buyer's willing to pay.
That's right.
That's
Well,
value.
you answered the question. Nobody's got a crystal ball.
Nobody has a crystal ball
Okay.
because value is subject to the market. It's up, it's down, it's fluid.
Well, if I've got 50 acres sitting there and I divide it up into 4-acre lots under the present rules, and it's in the middle of down there where I live, they could roll in double wides on those 4-acre lots. Am I right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
But with double wides, we have to be careful and understand the laws. Double wide is what we've coined the term, but after 1976, double wides prior to 76 were built with aluminum wiring.
Right.
There were several fires. The federal government took over inspections of double wides, and now they're called manufactured houses. They all come with a copper wiring. And the federal government also doesn't allow a jurisdiction to discriminate against a manufactured house. Thad is the retired county manager from Coweta County. I think Coweta County lost a lawsuit over this issue where they were trying to regulate out manufactured housings over a stick-built housing. So that's why Carroll County, to comply with the law, you have a minimum 1,230 square foot manufactured house, a minimum 1,230 square foot stick frame house. Or there's a third option, you can do an industrialized house, which is a new form that you may see on HGTV, where they bring it in on a trailer and the walls are prepared. So we set the wall, we set the wall, we set the roof, and that's called an industrialized house. And its minimum is 1,230. So that's to those questions. But I gave you a long answer to give you a simple answer. Yes, you can have a manufactured house on a minimum 4-acre lot.
And what do you think that would do to property values?
To the property values, well, it's there again, what is the value adjacent to it in the property being sold for? Because it's back to supply and demand. So long as you got supply and you got demand, those are what would drive the force to value. I know what you're looking for is a mobile home going to lower value? Well, I don't know. What is the mobile home adjacent to? You know, is it in a community, or is it just out there in the road? Is it on a dirt road? But if we're talking about a platted subdivision like at Oak Mountain, there they have HOAs and covenants. So when a developer builds a subdivision, he can place covenants on that, and he can place a homeowners association on that, and he can stipulate home rule to do whatever he wants to. He can say, you got to build a minimum 3,000 square foot house. But then again, it's inside his plat or his combination of lots. That developer gets to set that rule. And, you know, and in the county getting in that, I would say we're getting on thin ice. I think we need to stay at the minimum. Manufactured, stick-built, and industrial, they're all equal, they're all the same, and it's open to the free market.
Well, Ben, I appreciate it, and you've answered a question that I've had on my mind, and I think Tommy has too, that we got a gap.
There's a gap between the two.
We got a gap in here that I think that's what, we need to address that. We need to address that gap.
The gap is between Lot 4 and Lot 5.
Right.
Because you can do 4, and then when you go to 5, well, then you've just opened the box with our current regulations doing curb and gutter and storm drains, detention ponds, and that was all predicated off engineering and controlling stormwater on a half-acre lot, where you're now a 4-acre lot. And we don't have that anywhere else in the county, so that's back to, we let the ditch sections control stormwater. That's why we grass them, slows the flow down, and then they drain into the ditches and the creeks.
I'd like for y'all to work on that and present something to change that on the 4-acre lots.
Well,
I've made note.
that's what, if that's what the board wants us to do, we're the staff, and
Well, I
we
don't know
work for
about the
you
board,
guys.
but I do.
Commissioners, do you have any further questions for Ben or the county attorney?
So,
Sure.
I do think we need to do something based on the feedback that I've gotten, whether it's this or what.
understand.
One thing that we need to consider is it's a moot point. It's a farce, as I've said before, to have something on the books that says ag can only be split 4 times, and then you can split it 8 times, 12 times, 24 times, 46 times, whatever. I mean, we might as well take that off the book. So in y'all's consideration, we might as well not have anything that says in our ordinance ag can only be split 4 times. Or we could write it to say more than, it can only be split 4 times per hour. I mean, one way or the other. So we need to either have it in there with some teeth that it regulates what it was intended to regulate, or we do away with it. And because right now it's just a farce. It looks good, but in reality it's not. I would also like to say, I've heard a couple people say, oh, you tried to push this through and we only had 4 days or whatever. I mean, I had nothing to do with pushing anything. It just, I got with you and then I got with Avery and we put it on the agenda for September. If y'all want to have 30 more days and we discuss this, I've already talked to Dwayne Hicks and I'm fine setting up meetings and meeting with anybody. I mean, I'm not here. This is not my agenda. I'm the mouthpiece for my constituents, period. So if we want to push it back, have 30 days, have some meetings about it, get together and see what we can do, I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm not opposed. I just think something needs to be done. Personally, I'm in the same situation as some others have expressed. I mean, I have 100+ acres. Yes, I invested in land versus stocks. So that is my retirement fund. Yes, I do get state retirement. But I have 2 children. Will they want it? I mean, I'm 64 now, so, I mean, I'm not always going to be able to hook up the bush hog and trim the fence lines and tend to the horses and all that stuff. So as I get older, I think, well, do I want to split it? How many times? Do I want to sell it? I really don't now, but if my knee gets any worse, I might want to. But, so I'm in the same situation. I mean, I'm not some zombie up here that's apart from all the other residents and y'all's concerns. I have the same concerns. So, but the thing is, I'm glad this started the conversation. We need to do something. If the next step is to have 30 days where we consider feedback and so on, I'm not for pushing anything through, quote unquote. I'm for being an advocate for my constituents, period. That's it.
So commissioners, let me explain, since we have audience here, when I asked the commissioners to put something on a consent agenda, is so that we have one vote on Tuesday to help make the meeting go a little bit easier and quicker, because we have a lot of planning and zoning on Tuesday night. So in this particular case, I do not feel that we have a consent on this item. So therefore, this will carry over till Tuesday night. This is a work session, and so the public is not invited to speak, because it's really just our gathering and learning of information. So on Tuesday, you are welcome to come back, and we have the 3-minute rule where you can sign in and you can each speak prior to the meeting. So at this point, I'm going to ask, is there a consensus to put this on?
No, I don't want it on consent.
Okay.
No,
So-
let's,
we
Madam
need to
Chairman,
talk
may
about
I
this
have
on
a
Tuesday.
point of personal privilege?
Yes, please.
In light of all the good discussion, I know that at this point in time, I cannot amend the agenda, but I would like to, in deference to all my fellow commissioners in the audience, I would like to say that at this point in time, I'm probably going to make a motion to amend the agenda on Tuesday to do a 30-day moratorium on this particular item, that we might study it more, that we might hear from all those involved, whether you like it or not, good or bad. And I know it takes 4 votes to do so. It'd be me plus 3, and I don't know if I can get 3 or not. But I would like to go ahead and let my fellow commissioners know that's probably what I'm going to do, is amend the agenda on Tuesday to do a 30-day moratorium on this particular item. As we gather more information, we learn more from both sides, that we might make the best educated decision that we can.
Great.
As
So
I say,
at
I
our
don't
work
know if I
session-
can get 3 to go with me, but that's going to be my motion.
Thank you. So we are not allowed to vote also at work sessions. So on Tuesday, when we go
only
through the
a
first
heads up.
I will, we'll do our call to order, roll call, invocation, pledge of allegiance, approval of the agenda. And at that point, Commissioner Chambers or anyone else can make a motion to amend the agenda I have presented. And with enough votes, we will amend the agenda. So just wanted to explain that for those in the audience. So at this point, this is not going on a consent agenda, and we will continue the conversation possibly on Tuesday or further from there. So at this time, I'm going to go back to 10.1, which is Theron Gay, who's here to present a consideration for an RFP for a consultant broker for property and casualty insurance. Those of you in the audience, you're welcome to stay to listen to our RFP, but you are free to leave if you so desire. Theron, if you'll come forward, please.
Good afternoon. It's good to see everyone. Good to see you back.
Yes, sir.
Sure is. Here tonight to discuss the request for proposal for insurance consultant and brokerage services. As you guys remember, we did this last year with your health insurance, and I think it was a good process, worked out pretty well. So what we're looking now to do is another RFP to go out for your insurance and your property and liability. And that includes a lot of things like vehicles, et cetera. What we're proposing is to have the RFP, if the board approves it at your next meeting, we'll have the issue date be September the 7th. Proposal date would be October 1st would be the deadline. From there, we would have our evaluation committee review everything we received. We would have that back to the board at your December 2nd work session. And then, of course, it'll be back then on your December 7th meeting for consideration of the board. Now, this is not choosing an insurance company. This is simply choosing a broker and to help us with the insurance coverage. What this would involve would be, again, insurance to cover your real property, furniture, fixtures, equipment, automobiles, equipment, law enforcement, liabilities, et cetera. This would involve a proposal evaluation committee. We use that with the healthcare insurance. I think this time, I think we're going to use the same deal, and I will be there to help move them through the process. But I think that the chairman talked about maybe using some of the departments that have a high level of liability, like sheriff's office and maybe public works and others of that nature. What we will do there is we'll go forward. We will be assured that we talk about eligibility. These companies have got to be eligible to do business in the state of Georgia. We'll talk about their service to the county, their access to the insurance marketplace. That's very important. Their administrative support is also very important. And their ability to work with the county to manage your risk and control cost is another real issue. These RFPs would be presented and they would be collected out at your purchasing agent right now at the Public Works Department, and they would be due at 2 p.m. on October the 1st, and at that point in time we would call time and we would record what we had, and then we would proceed to open and evaluate those with the committee. We're going to check the background qualifications of the company, a lot of information on that, their service capability, again, their access to the insurance marketplace, history of what they've done, and we believe at the end of the day, you guys will be able to have a few agents and consultants that'll be able to come in and probably give you guys an update, and like we did before, make an appearance before you, and then it'll give you time to be able to evaluate, and we'll provide you with all of the documentation that our committee produces in this evaluation and review. So that is our proposal for this process, and I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody has on this.
I don't have a question, Theron, but I want to thank you for your work. I think this is a necessary move. You know the history of how this came about, and I think this will bring much more integrity into the entire process, so thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay.
Thank you for utilizing your expertise to help us.
Well, I enjoy working with you guys. I really do, and it's a great county. So, okay.
Commissioners, are you good with putting this on a consent agenda for Tuesday night? So as much as we'd love to keep you in Carroll County, you can stay in Merriweather then on Tuesday. So y'all good with consent for this?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we'll put that on consent. I don't think I missed any items. Christy, Donna, Stacy, with us skipping around a little bit. Did I miss anything? Okay, so at this point, I will adjourn our work session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.